Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where the mind and gym come together to help you live your best life. Hosted by two fitness professionals and your personal trainers, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. And here we go. Again with Think Fitness Life podcast. Matt Gluckman, Eric Menchie are your hosts as usual. And today we're talking about building a base with a general preparedness program, accountability, which is super important in people's lives, and then common problem foods, common high inflammatory foods, or foods that commonly have been found to cause issues for people with digestion or hormones or sleep or metabolism. And I think it's just important to recognize that list. Before we get going, we always like to save our food for thought at the end because we like to get inspired and kind of be present in the moment here. And the weekly workout will be a 10 by 10 seconds of a 80% run. And what you want to do with this run is mimic your best looking sprint stride. And you want to think that you want your chest tall, your head up, and you want to be driving your legs forward, picking those knees up high. And you don't want to be falling into the habit of kicking the leg back past your hip, because then you're actually disengaging your core and you're tilting your hip, and you might even hurt your lower back. So again, 10 by 10 seconds of an 80% run, working to improve your stride. Then once you're done with that, you're going to go to glute ham fallouts. You're going to do 3 by 10 or just 30 reps and however many sets you need to get that done in. Trust me, sometimes you'll be at like just 2 or 3 reps. Then we're going to do depth jumps. And what I want you to do is do 5 where you land both legs. Do 5 where you land on each individual leg separately. So you're just landing just on the left leg, just on the right leg, and then both together. So 15 total. And then you're going to end with a physio ball, 1 set of 20 hamstring curls. And
Love
your
it.
hamstrings will definitely be feeling it the next day. I know
And on
Eric
the
can appreciate that because he loves the hamstring work.
love me hamsters. On the depth jumps, what depth were you dropping from? That's a big thing. Obviously, we don't need people dropping from too high. What were you guys dropping from?
I would say, for recommending for the weekly workout, and like you said, we don't need you jumping very high, 12 to 18 inches.
Yeah, agreed.
That's
That's a
it.
good place to start.
Yeah. No need for anything more than that. And it's about just your body loading the power. And you got to think about, even when we walk, we are transitioning power and weight from one foot to the next at like a 1.5, 2 times our weight. In a run or a sprint, it gets up pretty high in how much power is going into each step. So it's just about being comfortable on each leg, because the body's only going to perform what it feels like it can get out of. So that's why you want to be able to absorb the impact and then be able to come out of it.
All about force absorption. That's how we get
But
better.
that's a really good question that they asked, because I hope that helps people get through the weekly workout in a safer, more effective way to leading to results, rather than just kind of picking the highest box they can find to
Well,
land off
especially
of.
for the depth drops, it's never over 24 inches, but you got to be careful as you go higher. You start to load and absorb more force. So it's great for people to start off, even if it's like a small step, 6-inch step, just to get the feeling of down and then feet landing. And then you can, I would really recommend 12 to 18, like you said, for very beginners or people just starting off with these. And then as you get better, you can load more.
What would you say is a good cueing? Like I like saying uh, like be quiet, like be a ninja, really like trying to not hear the impact, to really absorb it into the muscles and not, you know, clunking landing on a joint type deal, and having that force land into a joint. How do you like to cue that? And
I cue it. I just say step, and then once your feet hit the floor, you're gonna absorb that into a half squat position.
okay.
Um, and there's always been a back and forth of soft landing, non-soft landing, maybe more reactive landing, where you're like quick. If you're absorbing, it's gonna be soft. But if you're like depth drop to a sprint, you don't want the
Hmm.
absorption to be too soft because then you're
You
decelerating.
want to,
So
right? You want to
it
be able to
yeah,
explode out of that.
starting off, it's got to be soft landing. Like I want you to absorb and decelerate your body. As you get better, like running quick, repetitive steps, it's going to be a little bit more. Uh, I would say harsh, but not. I wouldn't say loud, but more of a sound.
But you know what? That's perfect because like starting off, I would just want someone to just worry about the just the land.
That's all it is.
But you're right. Like the next progression is landing and then exploding in like the opposite direction right out of that. Because a lot of injuries, whether it's ankle or knee or hip, happens in the load in like the deceleration aspect. Someone's cutting or taking off for a sprint and it's just a bad angle, or you know what I mean. So
And that's what we train first, basic deceleration mechanics. Can you
just
control
decel,
your body moving through space
and
and stopping it?
that's all we want you to focus on in this weekly workout is sprint form, posterior chain, and deceleration. Absolutely,
Changing it up,
absolutely.
minimal weights or no weights here, actually body weight, but you're still getting sprinting. Sprinting is a hell of a workout.
Yeah, you know, I think someone said it before. This isn't my quote, but if there's one thing that you could do for the rest of your life that would be the best thing, it would be sprinting.
More people need to sprint.
It's true. So that's why I'm bringing it back. I'm making everyone sprint.
Let's do it. Bring sprinting back.
This makes me think of a stupid joke. Make sprinting great again.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
had to go there.
Good,
Um,
because it works like
so
metabolic function too. Like sprinting is
yeah,
great
that
for metabolic function across the board. Building, even when we're getting talking
100%,
to our GPP, there will be some sprinting aspect in here to build a base. We're not talking high end
100%.
for high end top speed acceleration right yet for GPP, but building a base of capacity. I love sprinting. I think it's very underutilized in the world of maybe more gym settings. Athletes in sports, it's a good go. But once you get in the gym, people, I don't know, they back away from sprints or they don't want to sprint or maybe they just don't have the room. But
Mhm.
get out there and sprint.
I think it's definitely one of those things that is over torturous for people and underutilized. So like even when I'm just getting someone to run for the first time, I can see the anxiety build in their face because they know I'm going to get them to. I will ask them to sprint eventually, but it's just kind of like I just don't. I don't understand it unless it's like mechanically they're just feeling all this pain and subconsciously they're just not recognizing and tapping into that where that pain signal is coming from and they're just uncomfortable. But I feel it should be really rewarding. It should be really freeing to sprint. I mean, who just doesn't love to get out in the field and run? And you get your heart rate going, you get your respiration rate going. It's like a moment of clarity from your thoughts for a second because don't have the ability to think about anything else other than just making sure you're keeping good form and able to breathe and things like that.
Or
So
maybe it's when people think of sprinting, it's oh, I got to sprint on a erg for however long, or 20, 30, 40, 50 seconds, or sprint on ski erg or versa climber, whatever. Yeah, that's sprinting, but no, like we're talking like what 10, 20, 30 yards maybe max sprint, work on form, like you're hitting a
yeah,
high gear speed. I don't know if some people can hit that high gear speed or know how to get there. So
Right,
is it
right. A
uncomfortable for
lot of
them
people
because they're
just
like,
flail,
yeah, they're like trying to
you
figure
know,
out how to run fast, and they're like, what's going on? But once you get it, it's very rewarding.
for sure. And that's probably all it takes.
Yeah.
It's like having a topic that you really disliked, and then one day it just clicked and you loved the topic, and you found out it was like the teacher rather than the topic that you hated. It's kind of the same thing. It's like maybe you just need to look up more videos, or get watch someone in the gym who has really good form and ask them some advice, some words of advice. But for me, I'm really fortunate that, like, if I see it, I can usually do it. It's like monkey see, monkey do has been my best learning tool growing up and getting better at things in this field. And it's rewarding to like to not know if I can do something and just be like, well, what if I can do that? And then just try it. And yeah, I think sprinting should make its comeback in 2020. Needs to happen in everyone's programs, no matter your age. If you're older, you need it even more probably.
It's not limited. Not limited at all.
Um, I did find that quote I wanted to share. It's when you're walking, we're putting 1.5 times our body weight into our foot, ankle, knee, and hip. When we run, we can take up to 5 times our body weight in each leg. So coming back to the importance of the deceleration, improving deceleration and loading, and a lot of what we're doing too is like training better instincts of your body, like jumping off of a box and learning how to land on one leg. It's just training better instincts.
Right. And that's what we have to get the body to do is yes, we're sprinting in this weekly workout, but we're building up to it. We're not just saying, hey, you're gonna go run max sprints for
80%,
10
right? eighty
reps,
percent,
100%.
100%. Yeah,
This is where you have to build a base. Even you have to build a base of can I accept this 5 times body weight load on one leg?
hmm
Starting off, if you're a young training age, you might not be able to. At first, you can, but if the intensity and the volume increases too rapidly, what's going to happen if you can't over time? Injuries, overuse, problems. So when we're talking about really learning how to absorb force or build that base, we're prepping you for the next step in a program, the next increase in intensity. Sprinting, weight training, even long distance running, it's the same thing. You have to kind of build a base of shorter runs, and then you can
hmm
start building for the longer runs. You wouldn't start and go, I'm going to go a long run first and then cut down to short runs.
Right,
You could, but
right.
you don't know where your capacity might end, and you might start dipping in or overflowing your pool of your
Well,
base and getting into
I think
problems.
I think another way to put what you're talking about is, like, if you're preparing for a marathon, you're going to like make sure you do all the fundamentals, like learn the course, learn how you run, learn how your body handles endurance, learn how your body handles fuel. You wouldn't just go out and run a marathon and be like, okay, I got 3 miles that time. Like, I'm just gonna try harder the next time. You know what I mean? It would
Right.
just be really asinine of you, and you'd be working a lot harder than smarter. So it's like the general preparedness program is designed to improve movement quality, improve neuromuscular function, different energy systems, strengthening ligaments and tendons and joints. And I think I think what is going to help people kind of put this in two different categories is like, what's the difference between just me Googling a program online that has the sets and reps set out for me in each exercise for each muscle group versus a general preparedness program? Like, just how does, like, try to define that.
Well, I think we see it a lot and often in, I'm sure, multiple gym settings. And I know you and I saw this at Equinox where people come in and be like, hey, I'm on this program. And they're just like, oh, where'd you get it? Oh, magazine or online. Oh, how's it going? Like, oh, it's really good, but I'm feeling limited, or whatever. Sometimes the programs will be too intense for some people because they're not ready for that kind of program, or the program. It could be a great program. You can get great programs out there, but if that individual is not ready for the demands of that program, that's where it can be problematic. And that's where proper periodization and programming comes in hand, because people have to understand that if they're not ready for it, high intensities that ramp up really fast can be overwhelming from not only a body and posture standpoint, but CNS and recovery
Poor
fatigue
stress.
standpoint. So
Right.
people might wonder why, hey, it's the end of the week and I'm on this program and I'm actually beat down. It's like, well, maybe you don't have that base initially,
Hmm.
capacity, energy systems to keep up with it. So on Jeep
So
on
your system like run down basically. It's like
right,
overworked,
it's
stressed out.
trying to catch up for what you're doing. And that's one way to learn. And that's how most people probably who don't have training, background, history, or a degree or study in this field, they're just like, hey, I'm going to try this program, see how it goes. And they kind of jump into it.
Hmm.
We'd hope they don't get injured. We really do.
Yeah.
Because that's when usually we get kicked back, or like, oh, this program wasn't good because of this, this, and this. I don't think there's ever a bad program. It's just it
No.
might be a bad program if it didn't work appropriately. Like I jumped into some programs back in the day that they worked for a bit and then they didn't, and you kind of realize, oh, maybe if I had a better base or built my system stronger for this, it wouldn't have broken down in those areas. And I can look back in certain years and certain programs when I was like, okay, it was ramping up, and this is back when I would linear periodization, like volume, then it would go down, intensity would come up, and my body wasn't ready for that high of intensity because it was such long periods. And then it was like once you got to high intensity, it was like high intensity with high loads. Didn't fare well. So I realized, okay, more it's got to be for me, an undulating periodization where I have to introduce intensity sporadically through so my body can handle that adaptation. And that's what we're looking for through with a lot of people in our GPP is, are you able to meet the demands we're looking for? Structurally, functionally, or capacity wise, energy system wise, to move on to the next step.
You know, you made a good point about there's really no bad programs out there. There's just really bad pairings. So it's like based upon what an individual is trying to achieve or the athlete's trying to achieve, they could be on the wrong program for that outlook or that
Correct.
goal. And it just reminded me of a quote from it was comedians in cars getting coffee with the actor. Uh, I forget the actor's name, but he was in Inglorious Bastards. He was like the head Gestapo, and he said, "There's no bad actors. There's just bad casting. There is always an actor or actress can be in many different forms, and there's always the right role out there somewhere in a theater, in a movie, in a play, in a show type deal." I just thought it was really interesting because it kind of hits home to this. Like, there's no real bad program or no real bad workout. What makes it bad is if it's not fulfilling what the demand is and what you're trying to get out of it. And I think that's kind of the difference of the GPP also is like it's not meant to be a workout of the day. It's meant to be like this uniform package that you do for 5 days a week for 4 weeks in a periodized way so that your body's advancing towards being prepared to handle the next demand of intensity, whether it's sprints, whether it's box jumps, whether it's kettlebell swings for sets of 100 kettlebell swings, some type of capacity work like that. I think that's what's important for people to understand is that a GPP is really designed as if preseason. You remember going through preseason,
Yeah.
2 weeks of hell, two a days that got us in shape for being in season.
And before that was like a
In
couple
season
weeks of,
workouts is always
yeah.
easier.
Before that was like captain's practice. So you're getting a little bit more, and then it's a high dose. So you get into the season, you're ready to go.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
the the workout of the day, like I think that's became popular a couple of years ago. I think that's starting to fade away now. Um, but it's like, what are your goals for that workout of the day? Like, yeah, like you want to go in and get a good workout, but most people, everyone should have long-term fitness goals of where they want to be. We do this for a living. We ask people either goals, where do they want to be. If you just do random workouts of the day, you'll feel good. You'll feel, hey, that was a great workout. I did a lot of sweating. I did whatever. But if that doesn't align with what you're trying to do, and every day you do something different, and it start having competing demands on the body, it's hard for your body to really adapt and go in one direction that it wants to. Or sometimes these workouts are too intense, and you see people like huffing and puffing on the floor because their base isn't even there. And I've seen it many times doing assessments or training sessions with someone I've just met, going through maybe it's superset or trisets, and their capacity for work is just not there. Like yes, they're strong, they've lifted, but the capacity to repeat and go through 45 to 60 minutes of a workout session, movement after movement, whether it's loaded, unloaded, body weight, it's just not there. So then that's when you tell the person, okay, this is where you're lacking first, is your capacity to work. If you increase your capacity to work, you get more work in. If I increase the capacity to my house, my apartment, I can fit more people in here. The more people I fit in here, the more they can work. If you
Yeah, you run
constrict
a little
it,
sweatshop at your apartment.
yeah. So it's
But
like, well, it's like a gym capacity, right? If you start with a small gym, 1 or 2 people, and then you grow your capacity, 10 people, 15 people, it's the same thing. With those 10, 15 people in your gym, they're going to get more work done than the 1 or 2 people with a smaller capacity. So
I think one disconnect though is that I think the term WOD is failing away, workout of the day, but I still see a huge um, display of people who um, have the time set aside, have the discipline and the dedication to get to the gym, but they just want to do based on what they're feeling. Oh, what am I
right.
feeling today? Oh, I'm feeling like I should do this and that and the other thing, and that's fine. But what stems from is people have really busy lives, and when they get to the gym and they work out, most times people don't want to put effort into thinking about it,
Totally agree.
and they want to be able to check out, when really it's like that's not how it works. Like you have to be engaged in what you're doing and have to really like what you're doing to some extent, or you're not going to get out of it what you need to. So I think it's important to just mention, and we are going to get into accountability here in a little bit, but it's important for people to recognize that the moment you feel like you want to stop putting effort in, you have to be awake and put effort in. You have to think methodically, work smarter, not harder. And I think a lot of times also people don't put the effort in when they don't see the value in something, right? Like think about someone not buying an hour for the personal trainer, not following through with their free assessment, right? They don't see the value in it. And that value can stem back to themselves. Do they have low motivation in general of striving for anything, or do they have low self-efficacy? Do they have a low belief that they're even going to get somewhere different? And I think that's really important to mention, because if you are more of the workout of the day person, and you're the type that keeps falling into these traps of somewhat unhappiness, somewhat not that uncomfortable, tries different things all the time, but is still not really getting what they want, but is really unsure of what they want, you're probably falling into this category of almost being stuck in limbo between this comfort and testing the water
Yeah.
of
Going through the
uh,
motions.
discomfort
Yeah.
phase. Yeah.
And
And
yeah.
um, I think it has its value to um, think in terms of what does my body need, but then from there analyzing what should my week look like, and then execute.
Mm.
Analyze, then execute.
Multiple people I've talked to, go through that. And I've kind of been the same way. I've never been like, hey, a workout of the day. If it does come to a workout a day, like lately now, I've been doing conditionings on Saturdays, but I always have to pre-plan a workout. I always have to write it out because if not, I either get into the gym and I say, am I doing what I want to do today? Am I doing enough? And it usually, when it happens, it becomes like a bunch of exercises. I'm like, well, what is my focus here? Or
Yeah,
I
yeah,
start
yeah.
thinking
I
like,
know, I know
do I
that
want to do
problem. Yeah.
that? Do I want to compete? Do I not? So I'm always a person who has written down like, this is going to be my 4 week block, or this is going to be my program going forward for the next how many days. And I think everyone should have that, whether they run, train for marathons, sports, or just in general, our clients, other people, like they should have something when they come into the gym, they can open on their phone or have a piece of paper and says, this is what you're going to do. A lot of my clients have that, when they don't see me, they have their off days. This is what you're going to do. If not, they come in, and I've not given them off days and just to see what happens. And then they just end up doing, oh, I did shoulders and arms. And they do that 2 to 3 times a week, plus the
Yeah.
sessions I've seen him once or twice. It's like, well, you've just wasted 3 days. So the best thing about GPP we have is, you get this, right. You're going to get programmed weeks out, everything down to the T what you're going to do. So you don't have to think about, oh, I'm coming in. Do I row today? Do I squat today? It's like, no, it's you're squatting today, you're rowing today, you're pressing today. These are the exercises. This is the conditioning you're going to get with that day. Get in, get out, think about tomorrow when you open up tomorrow's worksheet. And that's all you got to think about. You don't have to think about anything else. It's just you have it right in front of you so you can perform that. And then once you get through the 4 or 5 weeks, you're now ready to increase your intensity. We have comfort, ability for you to be like, okay, we can load you more. We can give you more responsibility in the gym because you completed that. And that's where people are looking for online programs, and that's what we have to offer. That is like, this is the outline, this is the guidelines. Get it, go in the gym, do it, track your progress, see where you're at, and then we'll go from there. It's Everyone should be on some sort of program.
And like and I agree with you. I don't necessarily write it out of that day, but like I'll have it in my head of like, okay, I chose to go for a long run today. Okay, I have to do this 4.5 mile loop, or like I chose that I'm going to do sprints outside today. Like, okay, I got to get through 20 of them, or whatever it may be. But in terms of like the big block pieces, that's almost like zoomed in. That's like the micro, but the macro, I feel like, is more methodical. So it's like I'll help people implement like their week at a glance and being like, okay, well, this is when you're going to get weights in, and these are the 2 days that you're going to get more aerobic work in, and then I have another day that's more of an option day. It can be like an activity, a hike, yoga, whatever. But it's like we know with the GPP we're handling muscular capacity, we're handling aerobic capacity, we're handling anaerobic capacity, we're handling acceleration, we're handling deceleration, we're handling multi-directional, we're handling um, triplanar movement pattern. We're handling unilateral and bilateral movement. So the idea is like on a macro level, yeah, we're fucking super organized and methodical with that. But on a micro level, that's where it's much more interchangeable, and that's kind of where the fun comes in. So the GPP of the 4 weeks, we already have that mapped out on the macro and micro levels. But the idea is that once you've built a solid base, that somewhat the macro will change a little bit, but the micro will absolutely change. What you end up doing each day towards leading you to your goals will change. And it'll just be based off of really how you did with the first program. And it's almost like our starting block. It's our best way of understanding because we've done it so much. We've had our clients do it plenty of times, and we've had a lot of athletes do it as well. We have a good barometer for how someone can handle this workout, how someone looked from day one to day 28, or I
Yeah.
guess day 20, if you're doing it for 4 weeks, and it's a 5 day program. But we expect to see certain changes. And it's like from that point of those changes, we know where to take things next based upon your goal. Or from the lack thereof of seeing the results that we expected, we still know how to direct it because it was a data point. So it just allowed us to see where it took us to get the adjustment piece for going forward. And I think the biggest piece about online programs that people miss out on is the accountability piece. Like anyone can buy or look up or have the best trainer in the world write them the best program, but it's the accountability. And when we're talking about accountability, is it's not only your ability to show up and do what's on your page, but it's your ability to put that level of focus and effort into each rep that you're doing, and put that focus in being present of doing a single leg RDL or a box jump or a dead bug or a vertical jump or a dumbbell press or a farmer's carry, whatever it may be. It's full court press. 100% of your attention is on your activity, and that's the idea behind it. And I think accountability is a huge um, misstep for people. And people can have the accountability to show up, but like we talked about earlier, people don't want to think. They don't want to have to put the effort in. So they'll try to get it to a point where they can comfortably just kind of go through the motions. And I do want to mention that I've been there. We're all human. We all get through points where we recognize where, oh shit, I was just kind of going through the motions. Where was I in that workout? How come I don't feel that good after that workout? Like, oh, I was in my head that time. And it's just a feedback tool to help you become more and more accountable, and an invitation to be more present in the workouts. But I'm sure we could list off some ideas for people to help them be more self accountable.
Well, that's why I am a big advocate of writing workouts down or pen and
Yeah,
paper or having something. So
it's literally
even
my
for me,
first note was tip for people: write it down.
write it
Yeah,
down. So it's not so much writing it, it's making sure that you have something in front of you that's permanent on a piece of paper that you have to complete, or you don't have to complete. But if you look at it at the end of your workout and it says, 8 exercises, and the last one's like, hey, it was tempo sprints, and you were supposed to do 4 of them, and you only did 2, you're gonna know in your brain from reading that you didn't complete that task of the day, that you did not do that. And it works. It's always been for me. If it's in my head, it's you'd be like, oh, you think, oh, I have 4 of these. Two's pretty good, but if it's on paper for me, it's getting done and completed. I am
yeah,
checking that box, that mark of that set of what I'm doing. Did I dog that? Did I miss a? Did I skip on the third set? No, we're doing that today. And I think that's a big thing for me, even training my clients when I know I'm not there, is the accountability aspect of if I write it, like, you
I'm
look at
doing
it,
it.
you're expected to do everything on this workout. And if not, and I ask you, we'll say, well, what happened? And then, they'll take accountability for it if they didn't do it, and they'll say, yeah, I dogged it, and I know I didn't get the full out of that workout. Or I have other people, I'll put the workout out for them, show them, and okay, this is what I have. And they're like, I know that if I walk out of here not doing what's on that piece of paper or on the iPad, I've haven't worked to my potential today. And I think that's a good place that I use for accountability with people is you have to come in and do everything that's prescribed to you, or do what you need to do. And then maybe is it not the weight room? Is it accountability to show up to do your job at work? Um, and the hardest part is the if you don't take accountability, you don't have that sense of you. You take accountability for whatever you do in your life, then you have a greater sense of what you can accomplish. If not, it's like, I think you're, like you mentioned earlier, you're kind of lost in this limbo.
Yeah, you don't really even know what you're capable of,
Yeah.
essentially, because you're like too afraid to fail or too afraid to stick to something or whatever, too afraid of the actual workout. But I like how you're saying writing it down. I think a big one for people is writing down a week at a glance. So kind of knowing what you're going to do that week, what you have for your goals for that week, and putting it on a sticky pad and then putting it on your mirror. So you have to see it every morning.
Yes.
And now it's like
right in the
Monday
bathroom or
went by.
something. Boom.
Yeah, Monday went by. How have you tackled these? Have you done one or two of them? Great. Have you done none of them? Well, okay, it's only Monday. It's not that big a deal. But if by Wednesday you haven't done any of them, then you need to work on trying to weave these in more. That's holding yourself accountable. That's being disciplined. So writing it down is definitely a big tip. I think setting calendar reminders is a big one too,
Huge.
because
Yep.
I'll know like what I want to get done in the week, but then I'll just go in my calendar and like set a calendar reminder for when it's going to happen, and not just like um, just assume like it's going to happen. I
Well,
like setting alarms too as like little backdrops. So it's like I'm gonna hold myself accountable that I'm only gonna take like a 20-minute nap right now, right? And then I'll be like, okay, I'll set the alarm for 20 minutes, and then I'll set another alarm for 25, 30 minutes after. So like I can maybe I end up snoozing or something, and that's okay. But I planned for it and I set the reminders and set the alarms. Um, I think another good tip is find a workout partner. I
yeah.
think that's definitely one thing definitely coming into realizing and missing back here. It was great getting to work out with Eric, but it was great just having there's 30 trainers. There's somebody to work out with, and it's like the accountability of that competition,
Yeah,
and it allows for more fun. It's more engaging, and then you just push yourself more innately. It's like if you're running to it's like here, this phenomenon I'm sure everyone can relate to. It's like when you're driving side by side with somebody and all of a sudden you realize you need to get over in the lane and you're already ahead of them a little bit, so you're just gonna speed up a little bit and get in front of them. But the moment you start to speed up, now they speed up.
yep.
And but you've been sitting there going the same speed by them, and they've been going the same speed for the last minute. And the moment you chose to speed up, they sped up. So, birds of a feather flock together. You find someone else who's your same kind of goal oriented or same physicality level. I think
Or even
that's a great way
same
to hold
drive,
account.
same
Yeah,
same
yeah.
passion, same drive. And
Or someone who has good drive that's
yeah,
contagious, and you're trying to be like them.
and on the not even the competitive side, it's you mentioned earlier, it's just showing up. And I think that's a big thing that people maybe they're just not doing. It's that action that they're kind of missing. But if say, hey, Matt, all right, we're gonna work out tomorrow at 11 a.m. I'll see you on the floor. If I'm sitting in the break room and I know you're up there warming up, I'm like, hey, I know he's expecting me there. Like, this is, I can't let him down. And sometimes you'd be like, oh man, today, I'm not feeling 100%. But you would show up anyways. We'd show up to the floor workout, and sometimes it'd be like the best workout we've had. It'd be like just by showing up or having someone else be like, hey, I'm going to see you at this time. I'll see you tomorrow. That's a big thing. Even some people, some clients of mine, I'm like, hey, we're going to do this workout. We'll show up. It's going to be 6 a.m. Like I know, yeah, that's tough. You got to wake up early, but once they're there and then they're working with you, they're just showing up. They're going to get more out of it, and that goes for anything in life. Sometimes you just got to show up and be present and see where it goes, and then you can. That's one step for the accountability or ownership of your actions for that day. And like we've been saying for years on this podcast, like the health, fitness, and mindset is all about your own actions and choices and ownerships of your direction in life. Like we know we can't trust food industry, the government, or anything else to take care of us. Like we have to be educated and have knowledge to make our own decisions and actions for a healthier life. And it's now, especially in these times, people are now taking these steps to realize this is more important, and it should be. You got to be accountable for your own health, what you're doing for your programs, your workouts, your daily routines. If you're accountable for all those aspects and have those disciplines, guarantee you'll find success eventually. It might not come in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, but if you keep consistent with it, you'll see success come eventually.
And it is one of those things where you have to take our word for it, because um, I think a lot of times people will get to the point where they're like, okay, I can trust the process. I can trust the process. I'm not gonna like going to my bad habits of like looking on Instagram too long and getting depressed because I don't have the body I want. And then all of a sudden, 2 days go by, and they're like, "I did so well about being diligent, about trusting the process. Do I have the results yet?" And they look, and they're still demoralized. And it's like, no, like you need that discipline, even in those moments. You need the discipline to say, and now we're going on a tangent on discipline, but
It's one in one. Accountability and
they,
discipline,
they,
like
they do.
they're intertwined
They really are.
because you can
And
have
like
these
having the
moments.
discipline to stop yourself from going down bad habits
Yes.
again.
So
And
you
I
can
think I see a lot of people continue down the same habits, and it's really sad because they get to this point where they get frustrated, and then when they're trying to piece it back together, they're almost doing it in a way as if they can never get frustrated again. And it's like, no, you have to anticipate that you will get frustrated again. How are you going to deal with it then? Are you going to let yourself binge on some cookies again? Because that's going to totally deter you from your goal. Or are you going to redirect that frustration and stress to say, fuck it, I'm going to push harder? What if I just need to keep doing this more and 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 more? And that's what it takes, is not getting those tripped up moments and falling victim to them. And
and I do like your Instagram like example because I think that's
mhm,
probably a good one. It's okay. You say you're not going to do it, and you're 3 days in, and all of a sudden you're scrolling through. Let's say you got a 5 minute cap, and you're like 10, 15 minutes. You're like, oh crap. Okay, that's the point where we want you to recognize your behavior and your actions, that it wasn't a good outcome.
yeah,
It's not the end of the world that it happened. It doesn't mean you can
exactly.
fall off the train. You say, okay, I'm going to own that I just did that. For the next time I have my phone open, I'm going to remember, or I whatever, write it down or make a note of it, that I was on here for 15 minutes, and then you mental check it. Can I be better? Can I just go for 5 and shut it down? And it might be a constant battle at first. And there might be
Yeah,
times where you think about it, you're like, I'm not even going to pick up my phone. You're
yeah.
building small accountability steps as you go. And
And
that's just an example. You can go for food and anything else. It's the same thing.
yeah.
You have to be aware of what your actions are doing.
And what seeds you water will continue to grow. So like mentions like your example, it's like, okay, it worked, but it doesn't mean stop there. It means keep watering that pathway, and it's still going to be hard, and there's still going to be moments where you're going to want to just give up and stop, but you just got to keep persevering, keep trusting to push yourself through those moments, and know that it's only going to deter you if you let this demoralize you again. And
And I think food's the hardest one, right? Food is these because of this lovely world we live in with this processed food and all this garbage, that it becomes so this flavorful, these habits of trying to go back and assimilate with flavors and wants is very competing, and it leads us into what you're going to talk about is this these poor food patterns that we have, and these poor food choices that people just don't know about or can't get away from, like, and it just causes systematic problems for our body.
the last thing I do want to say about accountability is, before we go into the common problem foods, because I do think food is a major one for people. I think we could talk all day long about our theory of why, but I think a major part is that we talked a lot about on this episode is like a lot of people check out and they want to check out, and um, they're it's like an escapism. Food is like an emotional joy rather than a fuel to take care of their temple, their body, or take care of their brain, take care of their heart, take care of their lungs. For whatever reason you may have, maybe you have a history of lung cancer, or maybe you want to become a better runner, or maybe you want to just look good for your mate, or maybe you want to be healthy because you want to be able to play with your grandkids and get up off the floor when you get older, whatever it may be. Um, the the relationship with food being more that it's nourishment and it's materials for your body to renew itself, because your cells, your skin, your blood vessels, all this stuff is dying and redeveloping. So you're just trying to put the best equipment and materials in there so that you can have the best foundation and the best body. So last thing I want to say though is set an appointment with a professional. Whether like I understand, I hear it all the time about personal training and finances, and I get it. But how important is your health? Is it worth $100 a month to make yourself be accountable when that might be the only thing you're doing is just getting accountability done? But you're meeting with a professional one time a month to help align you, and it's like a training wheels period. And then after a couple months of that, maybe you don't even need the trainer at all. You just check in with them on an email or whatever, a correspondence every month or every other month. And that's the beauty of what we've done here is set up a medium for that. Like we talk about how we have the GPP as a starting base program for people. We also just have done custom programs, but I think the biggest thing that we do for people is accountability by having we are like the hired friend essentially. So we hold them accountable, we give them our professional advice, and we send them on their way. And it's totally at people's will whether they want to be all in and talk to us one time a day, 5 days a week, or just talk to us once a week or once a month or three times a month. It's all based upon what the individual feels is the best for what they want. And that's the beauty of it. Is it doesn't need to be super stressful, it doesn't need to be this arduous task, but it does take effort, and it does take people being solution oriented and being positive in that regards. um, so before we go off on too much of a tangent here, I do want to list the common food problems, and then also have enough time for our food for thought, because I love how we do podcasts here. Like we are so present because it allows me to it clicks, and I'm like, oh shit, this quote just will fit so perfectly. So I'm excited. Um, so the common food problems are are kind of based off of a general um, public's relationship with food, essentially. And I'm just looking for one thing real quick. And I think it's important to note that this isn't an issue for everyone, and it's more based off of what's commonly known to cause leaky gut, which is damage to your cell digestive wall, which allows invaders to get through, cause a host of problems from arthritis to weight gain, fatigue. And so it's important to understand that that the list of sort of approved foods for the body and problem foods for the body is going to be different and unique to each individual in their biology. And this is just a general rule of thumb, and it falls in the headings of let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So it's important to learn. Last thing I'm going to say before I'll give the list, it's important to learn specifically how you the individual will respond and what feedback signals you'll receive from the things you choose to eat. Common disruptors tend to be uh, we've talked about highly processed things many times, and there's many different reasons why that they're issues. The fact that they're processed and they're not naturally understood by our biology and our body. The fact that they're filled with fillers and artificial ingredients. Another thing that is foreign to our body. They're typically the other ones will include soy, and soy is in a lot of processed foods. Soy is highly inflammatory. Corn is another one that's highly inflammatory and can even cause issues in people if they eat meat that's been fed corn, because what happens is corn makes an omega-3 fatty acid in the animal becoming now an omega-6 fatty acid to the individuals eating that meat. High fructose corn syrup, another one that's highly inflammatory and that was highly processed. Vegetable oils, canola oils, highly inflammatory. And you can look up the production of how they make vegetable oils, how they make canola oil. But vegetable oils really got amplified because that was the major crop that we could put our hat in the ring for in the agricultural revolution. We didn't have the terrain to grow coconuts and olives the way that say California can in abundance.
And it's cheap.
Legumes, yeah, legumes are another common problem for people. And cashews is another big one because it's actually a bean, it's not a nut. So cashew does fall under the heading of legumes. I do find a lot of people who I've met who have issues with legumes. If they put them in a pressure cooker or an instant pot, or like a crock pot, they don't have issues with it. And research has shown that it will break down a compound in it that otherwise is harder for people to digest. And the history of some of these foods that became kind of a staple in our diet would be that they would soak. I mean, quinoa, rice, we would soak it for days before cooking it, and that would help get rid of the problem materials and help the body more easily break down the compound itself when it's in our system. Um, Dairy, another one that is highly inflammatory. Typically, it's actually an A1 casein protein rather than the lactose. Um, so if you can find dairy A2 milk, that's a fair game. I challenge people out there to give that a shot if if they've otherwise had problems. But otherwise, if you're fine with your almond milk and coconut milk, that's fine. Just watch out for carrageenan. It's another filler. There's no such thing as almond milk. You can't milk an almond. Coconut milk. There is coconut milk,
You can make like
but
what's it, like almond water, almond milk?
that's
Like you
that's what it
grind
is.
up almonds and just run water through it.
They run water through all these things: oats, almonds, cashews, and they make these milks. And they've had to come up with better regulations to be able to define and label something as milk.
I mean, if you do it naturally with almonds, it's just bland.
Yeah,
There's no flavor, but that's you get. You got to add the milk consistency. You get the carrageenan in there to hold it
it's
solid.
just supply and demand. People are Google searching how to buy milk. I'm trying to be a profiteering person and find a product to that they'll buy.
You can basically milk anything nowadays.
That was a good pun. Um, High quantities of sugar, even from fruit, can be problems for people. Seeds in tomatoes, for example, refined starches, grains can be highly problematic for people. Sometimes eggs can be highly problematic for people. It's the protein inulin that's in eggs that can bother people. So these are just common things to be aware of, and um,
And some of
get
those,
really good at knowing how your body responds to what it needs to have and how it responds when it's given something that it doesn't really like.
at the end, like that's maybe yourself, eggs and stuff. That's fine. Some of the other stuff you mentioned towards the beginning, like that's the stuff we just want to avoid, like omega
Mm,
6 and these vegetable oils, like these polyunsaturated fatty acids are like in high quantities is not good for the system. Like, yeah, they might
yeah,
be cause problems for some people, but as a whole, we want to really limit some of those foods. So a lot of the grains and the wheat products, we don't want to eat crazy amounts of lectins and really, you know, damage, because they can be problematic for some people who are susceptible. Other people might be fine, but over time, you can cause breakdown through the gut barrier by eating these things and lead to more problems. Or on the other side, it's
it's
metabolic dysfunction if you have too much of these certain things. High fructose
it's a
corn syrup.
little bit it's a little bit of a blind study in terms of we know what we're after, but we can't let people know exactly what we're trying to do because hear me out, and we'll go ahead, we'll take the blinders off for everyone. They can be we'll be fully transparent here. But when someone is emotionally triggered to their pleasure center in their brain with food, and you start to tell that individual, think of a child, that they can't have something, it's a defense mechanism. Clicks right in right away before the individual even realizes that they're being irrational. And they're like, they might not say it right then and there, but they're disagreeing with a lot of things you're saying, and they're justifying their disagreement. So that's why I do like to kind of gently just let people be aware of it. Here you go. You be aware that these are the common food problems. Take with it what you want. And at the point that it comes where you're like, Matt and Eric, you guys, you hit the nail on the head. I need to get these out of my diet. I'm ready to do this. How do I do it? We're here to help. But I've been out. I've shied away of trying to be like too authoritative with food because it's just too triggering of
You're right. Emotion.
emotional
It's
reaction.
great. The way I kind of, I wouldn't say get around that, because I have this dude. It's like, oh, people are like, I can't give up this. If you gotta, well, I've explained to what at a like molecular level it does, and then people they mull it over. They might not know what's going on, but then once they hear that, they start thinking, oh, okay, this is a little bit different than what I thought. Because a lot of people hear, oh, high fructose corn syrup, it's just sugar. But it's like, no, when you get, we don't have to break it down molecular, but when this thing gets in the body, I mean, it's creating damage to DNA and cells and all that other stuff
Yeah,
that can literally create cancers and change how we function. If
yeah.
that doesn't scare someone, I don't know what will. But just to have them, because now it's in their head,
But
maybe
it's not scaring them necessarily.
it
It's
might
just
create a
about
new emotion. I don't know,
getting
1, 2,
them
3 days
to.
down the road. That's all I'm
Yeah,
looking for. It's
yeah,
just a different emotion to a food that they're like, they might just think about next time they go, to pick up a bag of Doritos. They might be like, what did that guy say? Mm, hmm. I mean, like, as long as they're, like you said, they start thinking of it and they're like, wait a second.
yeah.
However, we can
That's, yeah,
plant
that's
that
great
seed. Because I
because
agree
it's
with you.
like,
If you just say no, it's like what
yeah.
but if you plant a seed and let
But
that
it's two
start to grow.
methods. It's two methods and basically there's more than one way to skin a cat, and it's two methods that are important to understanding
Right.
um, how to eat for what's best for your body and your biology. Um, so I think we pretty much um, knocked everything out of the park today. So I'm just gonna end. I'm just gonna end with our quote. And the context is us talking about the GPP being more than just a workout of the day, accountability, and presence in what you eat, in the desire to eat, and the presence in your workout, and the presence in your ability to stay with the moments and not let negative thoughts or your brain trick you. And um, the quote goes, "If you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you're living in the present." It's by Lao Tzu. And my little last thing I wanted to say about that is just don't let yourself be robbed of your ability to be present. That's it.
Thanks for listening. We hope you gained something from this episode. Our mission is to help people live their best life, both physically and mentally. Check out thinkfitnesslife.com for additional resources and schedule a complimentary assessment with one of us. We're always here to help.